Do you like wrestling? Do you like witty banter? Because this week's episode of Be Hero Fights is brought to you by the Midcard Podcast.
We know what you're thinking. Another wrestling podcast. But that's where you're wrong. We're the Seinfeld of wrestling podcast. We talk about life, our wives, our dogs, our girlfriends on the side. So come take a drive, take a seat, and take a mental vacation with the Midcard. New episodes every Saturday, anywhere you get your podcast from, or you can reach out to us on the social media. We're at TMidcard on Twitter, at the Midcard on Facebook, and of course, at the Midcard Podcast on Instagram. We look forward to you joining us. See you soon.
Welcome to Be Hero Fights. I'm Tom.
And I'm Brian.
And we are here to discuss
Or fuss.
over two hotly debated, highly related topics.
Last week, we were meant to have our very first episode of this on live so you could see our lovely faces. But sadly, Tom screwed up. He forgot to erase the memory card.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You know, everyone gets one. And that's your only one.
You've had like 10. You shush.
Everyone gets one. But that's okay. We worked around it, so you got to still see our faces just in still form. This is the live version of our faces.
We're very excited.
Right. Last week, we did a great episode, which we brought in a dear friend from ours, Jeremy Clark, from the Nerdy Niche podcast. And it was the episode about which is the better and more frustrating board game between Monopoly and Risk.
And it was a lot of fun. I had the best stories of violence and murder for Monopoly. Brian had nothing even remotely close to frustration for Risk, and yet he won. So I'm calling foul play. And,
you know, that may be true.
Always brings his friends on just to vote me out.
A lot of times what you don't know is when people kill each other with Risk, it's a murder-suicide, so there is no one to know it's actually what's happening. So, with all that being said, it was a great episode, and thank you again, Jeremy. Go and reach out to and watch the listen to the Nerdy Niche podcast. They have some great episodes. They just did one on Pokemon, which was fantastic. So go ahead and take a listen to them. With all that being said, we have another great episode, but first, let's get to the comments.
That's right. So over the last week or so, since we last caught you up on comments, we've had some feedback on some stuff. First, we're actually going to go back to the Wonder Woman versus Captain Marvel episode, where Nathan gave us his thoughts. He said, Captain Marvel was easily one of the weakest MCU movies. Dare I say that it was a little too DC-esque? The hero has to struggle to realize who they are. Then suddenly, at the end, poof, they become all-powerful, and the final battle is pretty underwhelming. That was a huge issue that I had with Wonder Woman and Aquaman. I agree with a lot of that. I don't really dislike the movie, but I think it definitely stumbles along. It's not as epic as it should have been for such an epic character.
Well, I agree. It is a very epic character, and there could have been done so many different ways. That being said, you're comparing against two of DC's best movies that they've done so far in their universe, so it can't really be that bad. So, moving on from there, we did have a couple of great comments about our Monopoly and Risk episode we just had. So, if you guys want to go back and take a listen to that, go ahead on the comments here on YouTube and give us a comment, or on our Facebook and everything else, which we'll give you those deets in a minute.
Yeah.
But first, Mel commented, great podcast. I'm going to have to place my vote for Monopoly. So she's wrong. Not only was it a great debate, but I also have horror memories of overturned tables, Monopoly money, cards, dice, and pieces thrown all over the room after or during a game. Also, in Star Trek, at least the ones I've seen, they don't use money. Because, boom, son.
Oh, shush. Listen, so actually, funny story. When I was talking about the Incredible Hulk flipping over the table and the board going everywhere and money. I'm not going to say that it was Mel that did that in my house.
It was totally Mel.
I'm not going to say that it was me, but I'm going to say that both of us were participants. Love you, Mel. Another comment on that episode from Steve. He said, nice comparison, although I hate both games due to the amount of time it takes to play either one. I grew up throwing board games across the room, and my kids all seem to follow suit. Yeah.
Well, it's true. Again, these both are games that take forever. So you have to have some really good friends or family to actually get through a game to want to play them.
Yeah.
So, oh man, but whew. With that all being said, and as great as the podcast episode as that was, so either go back and listen to or watch those ones, which, of course, you can always find all of our information about both the podcast and here on YouTube on
Instagram.com/BeHeroMedia, as well as Facebook.com/BeHeroMedia.
On our Twitter page at Be Hero Fights, and, of course, through our website at BeHeroMedia.com.
That's right. But let's go ahead and introduce who we have with us today. So today's episode is going to be a lot of fun.
Yep.
With what's the UFC? Anyways, we'll cut that out.
What's the UFC?
Yes. What is Ultimate
Fighting Championship?
Yeah. So first off, to my left here, we have a good friend of mine, Danilo. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk about fighting in general. I think if you guys talk anything fighting related, I'm in. Just count me in.
Awesome.
Right on.
Danilo's a good friend of mine. We used to work together for many, many years. We go way back. We've done some stuff. He's actually, believe it or not, I've been trying to get Be Hero and this podcast off the ground for years. And there was a time where he actually helped me create some merchandise for Be Hero, and
I kept like all the shirts.
Yeah.
They're all at my house right now. I wear them, so
reach out to us on Facebook if you want to buy one of our shirts.
you can buy a
Danny's
used
got 'em for us.
original. Yes.
Yeah.
A used original. That's right.
Shirts just like this blue wonderful thing here.
Well, his are so his were a little bit different, but this was one of the iterations. In case the camera can't see, I'll just come up a little bit. Yeah, right there. And then we had a
take it off so they can see.
yeah.
Don't take it off. Don't take it off. We want to keep fans.
They say dad bods are sexy. Okay.
My wife is not on that list of people that agree with you.
I don't think anyone's wife is. They're tired of looking at the dad bods. Anyway, so Danilo, and tell us a little bit about kind of your experience. You know a lot about UFC. So today's topics, we're going to be talking about a couple UFC fighters and their acting credits, chops. But tell us kind of a little bit about your history and background with fighting, UFC, and everything.
Sure. Yeah, my dad's we're Brazilian, so Brazilian, the culture is very much like you fight. People here, they wrestle. We do judo. We do a lot of Thai boxing, like Muay Thai, kickboxing. And then, of course, Vale Tudo, which is like the OG original MMA. And since my dad had been fighting since he was like 14 or 13, he's a black belt in Taekwondo. He has a few – he's a gold medalist in international championships that – it's not quite like the Olympics, but almost that level. And then since then, he's always been watching mixed martial arts in general. So Vale Tudo, in my opinion, it was the original MMA. And then the Gracies brought the UFC. And that's what we watched it since the very first one. So, and I'm as old as the UFC, so that's saying something. We watched it when the UFC kind of disappeared as well, like when Japan really was taking over the scene with Pride and some other organizations they had over there. Yeah. I was watching it. So I have quite a bit of fan experience. I've trained Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, a lot of different martial arts as well. I'm a huge fan, and I'll pretty much always will be.
No, I've actually been with you to one of your training sessions. What was it, jiu-jitsu?
No, that was kickboxing. It was Muay Thai. Yeah.
Muay Thai? Okay. Mm-hmm. It was pretty aggressive. I just watching you, I was like, I'm not going to I'm not going to pick a fight with Danilo.
No. Years ago, I did training. I trained when I was a younger kid in Taekwondo, made up to a red belt, did it for like 6 or 7 years. And then when I first started wrestling, I trained with some of the other wrestlers who were also in MMA. So I did a little Brazilian. I did a lot of Muay Thai, so much so did the bamboo breaks and everything else through all that until you break your shins and they re-heal, all that nonsense.
Yeah.
And that stuff's insane, dude. Like, I couldn't do it now at my older age.
Yeah, Muay Thai is brutal.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most brutal martial arts, especially it's hard on your body physically. And jiu-jitsu, you're kind of known to, like, it's funny to say, but you shrink in size.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people do because they spend so much time working your spine ends up kind of breaking down slowly. But that doesn't happen to everyone. But if you're old like me and, you train, it tends to happen.
Also explains why all the Gracies look like they're only 4'11".
They started out like 7'2". Yeah,
Right.
they're all NBA players.
Oh man, but yeah, well, glad to have you on here, Danny. And then over here on my right is Brandon, who's been a great friend of mine for years. He's also a wrestler that goes by Leo Wolf. We've actually were a tag team at one point in time for many years, and you can find him on Devotion Championship Wrestling on Fight TV, along with myself, every Thursday night. So Brandon here is going to be assisting me in judging. Mostly he's just going to joke around and
The Peanut Gallery.
But
Definitely going to be the peanut gallery on this one. I'll take some jabs when I can get them.
there you go. But thanks for joining us, Brandon.
Thanks for having me here.
Any MMA experience or anything that you know about either of these fighters?
Other than watching UFC every once in a while, I'm more of a wrestling guy, so I haven't really watched enough UFC, but I'm definitely going to talk my crap about it. For sure.
Perfect.
Well, to tease this all in, because we have not yet said what we are doing, this week we are comparing two of the greatest UFC fighters of all time, George St.Pierre and Randy Couture. Both were neither in the same weight class or were relatively in the UFC at the same time. But because of such, we're not comparing them as fighters. We're comparing them as actors. We're going to compare to see who was the better actor between the two.
Yeah, both of them have actually started breaking into Hollywood, and the Randy Couture he's got a good list of credits at this point. George St. Pierre's got a few as well. And since Danilo knows more than all of us combined about both of them, I'm going to attempt to fight him.
About their fighting careers, by the way, is what I know, not their acting. We'll work on it.
Yeah.
That's why we get a little bit of an even plane there. I'll be judging on this one, and Brandon and I will be both making comments and joking a lot about them.
Most definitely.
And there's this is actually all in honor. There's a big UFC event coming up, which is called...
I think it's 260, 259. It's Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 2. This is their rematch.
Yeah.
It's a really big fight. Conor McGregor hasn't fought since last year, and he fought, I believe, in January as well. So this is literally 1 year. And before that, it had been a while. I think his fight prior to that was Khabib, where he lost that fight for the title, and it was one of the wildest events of all time. I don't know if you guys remember this. Khabib's nickname is the Eagle, and he literally after the fight, he flew out of the ring and jumped on Dylan Dennis and some of McGregor's teammates, and it was insane. They had, I think the governor was there. He was in like the arena, and they were trying to get the governor out because they're throwing beer bottles. They thought it was just going to be a huge riot.
Wow.
Like Russia against Ireland in there, and it wasn't as bad as it seemed, but it was pretty crazy.
Seems
intense.
pretty epic, though.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
He's gunning for essentially right now. Khabib retired after his last fight, but they didn't relinquish the title yet in hopes that Dana White could convince Khabib to come back and fight whoever wins between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. So for a lot of fans, they're wanting McGregor to win this fight so that they can get the rematch fight between those two. Either way, it's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy.
It's exciting. So yeah, in honor of that, we want to do a UFC-based episode. So again, Randy Couture versus George St.Pierre. Who is the better actor? I'm going to be going on the side of Randy Couture. I've actually seen him fight in the UFC. He's a great fighter. He's very entertaining to watch. So I've actually been a big fan of his for a long time. George St.Pierre, I actually didn't know anything about him. But he was in Captain America Winter Soldier, and Brian told me that like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, well, I'm just embarrassed as a human being at this point.
You should be. Yeah. He won an Oscar for that performance. Don't fact check that, please. It was really good.
I was about to believe you and start blowing that up.
He had such an amazing monologue in that part too. It was so good.
Yeah. It was a really good sentence.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I'm not fighting on behalf of this. I can't go on, but I'm going to anyways. George St. Pierre's made a really dumb D-level character into something pretty cool in that. So he portrayed Batroc the Leaper, which is the dumbest character of all time in the Marvel universe, and he made him worth something. So that's going to be the last time I'm going to help, though. Go ahead.
Thank you for the help there. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I'll be fighting on behalf of Randy, and then Danny will be fighting on behalf of George.
Yep. We'll call him GSP for short.
Yep.
Because Georges St. Pierre, there's an S at the end of the George, by the way, if you didn't know that. St. Pierre.
As if I didn't already feel bad enough.
I don't think they pronounce it, though, so you should feel good.
I don't think I've ever heard him say George with an S at the end.
Yeah, GSP is so much easier. It's 3 letters. Yeah. Why not, you know?
Yeah.
I will be fighting in behalf of him and his great acting career. Both of these guys, amazing acting career.
Oh, yeah.
Big future ahead of them. Kind of excited about that.
All right. So just as a quick introduction to Randy Couture. So he's an American actor, former U.S. Army sergeant, and mixed martial artist. Former collegiate and Greco-Roman wrestler. So during his 10 years in the UFC, he became a 3-time UFC heavyweight champion, 2-time UFC light heavyweight champion. They're really like breaking these divisions up a little too much. An interim UFC light heavyweight champion, making him a 6-time UFC champion, and the UFC 13 heavyweight tournament winner. He is also the first of 7 fighters to hold 2 UFC championship titles in 2 different divisions, which actually George St. Pierre is one of the others that has that.
Yeah, the crazy thing, and I'll give this to Randy Couture. He was in the heavyweight and light heavyweight, and there's a pretty big difference in weight between those 2 divisions, and for him to have had both belts is crazy.
Oh yeah.
And one of the first to ever do it. I think the first, right?
The first, yeah.
But also just as impressive as that is our guy GSP. GSP, whenever there's a GOAT conversation, the greatest of all time, who's the MMA Mount Rushmore, who is it? GSP is always within number 1 or number 2.
Oh yeah.
There's conversations, some will say, oh, John Jones, Anderson Silva, but GSP is always within that top 1 or 2. It's one of those guys and GSP. So you can't deny the success that he's had while being in the UFC. He originally he was a karate guy out in Canada, and he did really well in some of the circuits there. And one day he watched Hoist Gracie, skinny guy. I think he weighed like 170 pounds, and he was fighting these giants in the first UFC, and he's like, I need to learn whatever that guy's doing.
Oh yeah.
And so then he eventually he's like, I'm gonna be in that organization. And so he started fighting in some of the regional circuits. There's one of his guys, David Loiseau, was one of the first French Canadians to fight in the UFC. So under his tutelage, he started learning a little bit more about MMA and really shining in some of the regional circuits, which eventually brought him into the UFC. Once he got into the UFC, he was a welterweight fighting at 170. He was a physical specimen, so he was a freak athlete. He didn't have like a wrestling background, but the person that he took the belt from was Matt Hughes. If you guys know who Matt Hughes is, amazing wrestler. That's essentially his whole background, NCAA king, essentially. And he took the belt from him, and he out-wrestled a lot of wrestlers, became really good in the clinch, and used a lot of his karate background with his movement, things like that, to become champion. So he was a welterweight champion of the world. He was a reigning welterweight champion, undefeated for a very long time. He lost in a freak fight against Matt Serra, considered one of the greatest upsets of all time. Next fight, he took it back and kept the belt for a really long time. He retired, and then 4 years later, I want to say, maybe more than that, came out of retirement and went up to middleweight, which, again, that's a big weight increase there. You're going from 170 to 185, and ended up getting the belt from Michael Bisping, who was a big middleweight.
Oh, wow.
And it was wild. It was crazy.
So now you guys know a little bit about both. So let's talk about their acting chops.
Okay, here we go.
Here's the thing. I haven't seen GSP in much. So he was in Captain America, Winter Soldier, and actually, like, he doesn't really talk a whole lot, but that fight scene with him in Captain America is impressive. But like, he doesn't really get much to really bring his personality out. So I haven't really seen a whole lot to impress me with him as an actor. In fact, if you were to jump on YouTube and look up Randy Couture or GSP and just try and find like scenes from their movies, it's not too difficult to find scenes of Randy actually acting. The only thing that you can find, at least that I found with GSP in a equivalent, like, you know how it is. You search something for 30 seconds, and that's like 10 years time, right? So in the 10 years that I spent looking up GSP on YouTube.
We do proper research here.
Yeah.
I could tell.
in that 30-second, 10-year time frame, I only found his scene with Captain America. Randy Couture, so what you would really know him from would be the Expendables series. Expendables 1, 2, and 3. Expendables 1 is really kind of where he's highlighted a little bit more. He gets some scenes to actually talk and let his personality out. He's very entertaining. I actually really enjoy watching him. And, it was actually really fun in that movie just getting to see him, one of the biggest names in UFC, go head-to-head against Stone Cold Steve Austin, one of the biggest heads in wrestling.
Yes, sir.
And, not that it was a real fight, but yeah, I would like to think that Randy would actually beat Stone Cold, and so I really enjoyed watching that happen.
I
Love
like
you,
to
Stone
think-
Cold. Don't get me wrong.
I would like to think those two would sit down and have a beer together.
Yeah,
I think I would go with that one. Yeah.
if it was a drinking contest, I think Stone Cold would
Stone Cold
destroy him.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
That's not the debate, though.
Not even close. Randy Couture has also been in quite a few other movies. You would know him also from The Scorpion King 2. Maybe the best I can't even say that with a straight face.
You may know him from Scorpion. How many people knew that there was a Scorpion King 2
Dude,
in
there
the
are
first
5.
place?
There are 5 Scorpion King movies.
We walked
There's
in here
5?
and I said Scorpion King 2, and you guys said, what?
Yeah.
You mean The Mummy? No, that's 1. That's the original.
Oh, man, that's insane how many of those. And there's like some that went straight to streaming, not even straight to DVD, like straight to streaming.
Yeah. All right, Tom. So there's one really important fact that you're missing here. I don't know if you even thought about this, but GSP is actually the highest paid MMA fighter on that whole entire movie cast and the whole thing.
Really?
Yeah.
The highest paid?
The highest paid.
100 out of 100% of the
I
MMA
would-
fighters that are going to be in Captain America, Winter, whatever, Falcon and Winter Soldier?
I would take the risk of saying this and saying that in every movie that he's been in, he's the highest paid MMA guy on the whole set.
It's hard to debate that, sir. I mean,
Look, you may not be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure Randy Couture was the highest paid MMA fighter in the Expendables. 1, 2, and of course,
Was Wesley Snipes in there?
Maybe not 3, because 3 also had Ronda Rousey.
yeah.
Yeah, so kind of shot yourself
but
in the
you
foot
know what?
on this
But
debate.
you know what? 2 of the 3, and What do you got? So you got one?
I have plenty of movies that he's in, just so you know. First of all, and I think we mentioned this already, but he's in the sequel, essentially, of Falcon and the Winter Soldier is essentially...
And that's not even out yet, though. That doesn't count.
But it's... He impressed Kevin Feige. Done. This is over. Should we walk out of here?
There is no. He hasn't. We haven't seen him act. We don't know if he can deliver a line yet. The only thing that we have heard him say in the MCU is, "I thought Captain America was more than a shield."
That was a terrible impersonation.
Yeah,
of
it
him.
was, but
He has like a French accent.
You just heard every Quebecian ever right now,
Yeah.
dude.
No
We
one
just
in
lost all of
Canada
our
will.
Quebecian fans.
Yeah. All of Canada really is felt disrespected right now. But we'll win this
Canada,
back for
allow
you.
me to start my two-part apology by saying I think you're a wonderful country, and I am deeply, truly sorry.
And they're all looking back at you. What's that a boot?
That's not French Canadian.
Do it in a French accent. I can't do a French accent.
Yeah, I can't do GSP's accent either. One thing that you're missing out on, again, with your Google search that you did.
YouTube. I said it was
search.
YouTube, and I did, in fact.
Also owned by Google, by the way.
So you did Google it. Whether you like it or not,
Facts.
you Googled it.
What are these facts?
You may be forgetting one of the greatest martial arts movies, action movies, I'll say, of all time, The Kickboxer. One of the greatest action superstars of all time, Jean-Claude Van Damme himself.
Yeah, yeah, big fan.
Big fan. You ever seen him do the splits?
Has he ever not?
He's always doing
like
the
every
splits.
movie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, even in like appearances, he'll be like on a show and they'll be like, "Hey, how's it going?" He'll just do the splits.
Like on Conan, this is how you do a split.
and they're like, "We didn't ask you to do that." And he's like, "Still doing
I
it."
was gonna do it anyways.
Too bad.
Jean-Claude Van Damme's favorite fighter, or GCVD as I like to call him. He's a buddy of mine, good friend of mine.
Good old GCVD.
Or JCVD,
Good old
sorry.
buddy old
Sorry,
pal.
yeah, JCVD.
4 letters. His favorite fighter is 3 letters, GSP. That's a fact. And also, he made sure that GSP
they're
was a
both
part
French.
of the kickboxer. He's not French, actually.
He's Belgian. Jean-Claude Van Damme is Belgian.
Oh, I thought he was.
No.
My bad. I'm sorry, John Claude. Let me start my.
Might as well start that apology right again.
So he
gonna
was
be a
a
lot of
part
those.
of the kickboxer, the reboot essentially that they did for it, and he was one of the key actors as part of it. If you go rewatch that too, there's also a ton of MMA fighters, a ton of champions. Cain Velasquez is on there. Fabricio Verdun is on there. You got people like Gina Carano is on there as well. And GSP ended up being one of the main actors. And Gina Carano, like as you guys know, a really important role right now in The Mandalorian. So the fact that GSP took a role that was bigger than hers in that movie should say something.
It's true.
Now, really interesting. If you guys are action movie lovers at all, that's actually a really good series to watch, The Kickboxer, the new ones. One of the really cool scenes is it's actually partially true. So about GSP, not necessarily about GSP, but he plays someone who's real.
Are you guys getting this?
So if you guys watch The Ultimate Fighter, ever watched The Ultimate Fighter?
Yep.
Back in the day, GSP was one of the coaches on one of them, and GSP brought one of his coaches to help out with striking for some of his guys. And it was Jean-Charles Skarbovsky, I believe is his name. Google that, fact check that, because I might have messed up his name.
Or
But-
YouTube.
Yeah, or YouTube it. YouTube it. It's easier. But yeah, actually, you can watch this clips on YouTube. But he's a world champion Muay Thai fighter. He came drunk to the set to go coach these guys on 0 sleep. This guy's a chain smoker, and he comes in and he just beats
like
the
him
crap
already.
out of all these guys that in real life. And so GSP, he plays the role of a Thai kickboxer who's drunk all the time. And he plays this role in the Kickboxer movies. He's in, I think, the whole series as well, as kind of a training partner for the main character. And he does an excellent job. You really believe he's drunk. Maybe he did really get drunk for the scenes, and it kind of is reminiscent of Drunken Master, if you've watched
Jackie
good old
Chan.
Jackie
Drunken,
Chan.
yeah, no, Jackie Chan, Drunken Master is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I do have to say one thing real quick. Don't get me wrong, I love Jean-Claude Van Damme. Kickboxer, I don't love him for the kickboxer. I love him for Bloodsport or Lionheart. Like Jean-Claude Van Damme, like he was an action movie star, but he only had a couple that were really like well known. He was
How
no.
dare you, sir.
Like we had Time Cop, but he really was known as more of kind of a B action star. He did not have the chops of Stallone. He was more closer to what's that guy's name? I can't remember.
Our Lord and Savior.
Steven
Of
Seagal.
action.
Yes, I was gonna say he's a lot more comparable to Steven Seagal, where like they do have some big name, great action movies, but they're also in a ton of B action movies, and that's really where Jean-Claude Van Damme kind of got his break. And I believe like really Kickboxer definitely falls under the B action.
I definitely
set
disagree with you on
of
that.
his movies.
And I think
and so for George St.Pierre to come in and like, yeah, I've got props from JCVD and and play a real person, I guess. I don't know, like that's just not that impressive to me.
he's literally one of the greatest martial arts movie actors of all time. When you talk about when you talk about greatest of all time with those,
Bruce
movies,
Lee is number one. Jackie Chan.
you
number
talk
two.
Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Jet Li is number three.
Jet Li.
Actually, Jet Li I
is-
could probably put above Jackie Chan.
How dare
Ooh.
you?
Yeah,
How-
for his
how could
role
you
in
do that?
Mulan. Is that
No, just because he's had. I don't know who's had more. I feel like I've seen a lot more Jet Li. I've seen a
Jean-Claude
ton of
Van
both.
Damme essentially owned the 80s and 90s. Probably the
No,
90s.
it's-
Maybe I'm getting the
it
time
was-
All right,
era
guys,
wrong.
before we go on, remember the fights between JSP and Randy Couture. Not
Okay,
if Jean-Claude
touche.
Van Damme was a good actor or not.
We're trying to get the credibility of Jean-Claude Van Damme saying his favorite fighter is GSP. I
Oh,
guess that's the point I'm getting
Well,
at.
remember, you're talking to the judge here, trying to get the judge to listen. And one of my favorite actors in the 80s was Jean-Claude Van Damme. So I got you. You're good.
You're in trouble.
I
Tom.
love John Von.
Obviously.
I love Jean-Claude Van
Start
Damme.
writing
I
that
really
apology.
do. Allow me to apologize again.
Make sure to send to him in French where he can read
I'm
it.
gonna have to
from
just
being from
write
Belgium.
this out.
And speaking of martial artists who really love GSP, he plays an extremely important role in one of Steven Seagal's latest movies as well.
Does anyone follow him ananymore? I've
He,
heard he's the biggest asshole, and most people don't work with him even.
He taught all UFC fighters what they know. There's actually, it's a kind of a long-term joke because he did actually train with a couple of guys. He trained with Anderson Silva and Lyoto Machida. And when
To teach him the
Anderson's-
one martial arts he knows, which is Aikido.
And then Anderson Silva knocked out Vitor Belfort with a front snap kick, which is a very basic kick that you learn in Taekwondo, Muay Thai, and pretty much every martial art.
Yeah.
And he took credit for that knockout, one of the greatest knockouts of all time.
We do
so
the-
it's a long-term joke.
We do a front snap kick in wrestling, all right?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
It's called a toe kick for us, but it's the exact same thing.
Yeah. So, well,
It's a high
it's
toe
not
kick.
Steven Seagal's. That's what knocked out Vitor Belfort. But he was in a movie with him, and he was one of the main characters in the movie. It was there were three main characters. And if you look at the poster, you'll see Steven Seagal, at GSP, and then the other actor.
Whoever that is.
The other
I mean,
actor.
Randy
The other
Couture has
guy.
also acted with the likes of Steven Seagal, and Steven Seagal, destroyed him because Randy was a small role. As for both of these guys, most of the roles are much smaller.
And most of them get killed. Yeah, you're
yeah.
right. And
Yeah,
GSP did end up getting killed in that movie, and he plays a really good dead guy as well at the end of the movie.
Really sold it?
Yeah, he
That
definitely
death
sold
scene?
it. He to
Could
get
you see his soul leaving?
He did it in a French
pretty
accent.
much, yeah, in a French accent, dying. If you watch you can watch just the scene if you want. You just go on YouTube and GSP dying. I think you just put in. Don't Don't ask me how I found that out, but he gets. Can I talk about gruesome? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty gruesome. He gets stabbed in the throat or like in the neck, kind of up towards like the chin area,
Yeah.
and then he just kind of holds himself there in a French accent, just dying. And it was great. It was an excellent, but probably the climax of the whole movie was that part of the movie.
Nice.
All I'm going to say is Randy Couture has had a lot more time behind the silver screen, and he's becoming a lot more proficient behind it.
When was his last movie?
This year, and he's got like 3 slated. So he was in Alpha Code this year and Final Kill this year. He's been in Ballers, the TV series. He's been a lot. He's been in Hawaii Five-0. And
Any
then like
Disney
you have
or anything like that, like
not,
Marvel,
not
Disney,
to mention like
or-
he's got 3 movies that are coming out over the next 4 movies actually that are set to release over the next couple of years. I think the Expendables is really where he's going to be shown the best, his best chops. And the scene where he's not really justifying, but like defending himself and why he's still valid with his cauliflower ear. It's clever, and they're all poking fun at him. Like, when was the last time you saw your therapist? This morning. Like, I don't know, that banter was actually perfect for him. And I think of the two, like, I really haven't seen much of GSP, but like that scene like really sold me, and I actually saw like acting credibility there, and I was like, I could see him in other major roles. I could see him being the next Rock. Like I could see because when the Rock started, he was really not
That's
much.
a huge stretch that you just did. The next Rock.
What I'm trying to get at is someone coming from a fighting background, a completely different background, and into films. Maybe not the next Rock, but the concept
Maybe
of
a
coming.
rock, like just a pebble or something. Like
Shut up.
one you find outside.
He'll probably be as good as The Rock was for
What-
Scorpion King 2, where he was for Scorpion King, or Scorpion King 1, the Scorpion
He's-
King 2.
He's as good as the CGI, the Scorpion King.
That is not true. That is false. No. Look, the Rock has taken the Rock did not come into Hollywood and start amazing. He really stumbled along for the first probably 5 to 10 years of his Hollywood career, and I think Randy Couture has got him beat there. He's already in about that same amount of time pulled off better quality material, better quality acting. I think he's got room to grow. Now, time will only tell. Who knows if he's going to catch a big break. Maybe he's more like Dave Bautista, but going from wrestling to Hollywood. But the point is, like, he has
Dave Bautista also in Kickboxer, by the way. He plays the main bad
Shut
guy.
up.
So,
Main antagonist.
yep.
All right, so we're
Okay.
coming to the end of this, so let's go ahead and get final thoughts. Danny, let's start with you. What's your final thoughts? The biggest way to sway me to go for GSP being the best actor?
I would say there's 2 big points that I want to point out. And one doesn't have to do with acting, but it equals out to his accolades that come with acting as well. So the first one is, how did they retire? GSP, when his last fight, he won a belt. He came out of retirement for 4 years, came and won a belt. And then from there, Disney's calling him. Disney, Kevin Feige, hey, call that GSP guy. Let's get him on here. I love his French accent. I love how he died in Steven Seagal's movie. Get him on my set. I need him. And now he's in one of the most anticipated TV series, probably of all time, especially with the Disney Plus, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He's going to be on there. And he's going to be one of the main characters, main villains. And so those are my 2 big points. I think 1, Disney Plus wanting GSP to be there, and 2, how they both retired. Randy Couture lost his teeth in his last fight, just so you know. He was front snap kicked, Steven Seagal style, to the teeth, and lost his teeth. He lost his that's 100% true, by the way. Lyoto Machida ended up KOing him, and the Expendables, we use the argument of the Expendables quite a bit, and I mean, honestly, the Expendables is about an 80-year-old man, Sylvester Stallone, who wants to keep acting.
He was 70.
First of
during
all,
that movie.
He's
first
like
of all,
300 at this point.
Expendables 1 and 2 are two of the greatest action movies ever made. Fight me, internet.
If you'd like to add a comment about this statement, please do that right here on YouTube.
And Expendables 3 was one of the worst action movies of all time. But the thing is, Randy Couture was in that, but he's in so much more. He is consistently sought after because he is a big name in the UFC. He's got, like I said, 4 movies coming out over the next year or two. He's got a career in acting, and he's got a lot of room to grow. I think The Expendables was really just like really his first break with like a higher budget production studio and team, and so he definitely had more of a chance to let himself shine. Like I said, both actors have kind of been more on the low budget B side of action movies, but Randy has had the opportunity to show his acting chops, and because of that, he's still being sought after as an actor today.
Except in A-listed movies, right?
It's true, but at the moment you both don't have either of those. So that being said,
Expendables 1 and 2 are A-list.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Both of those. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. So, listening to both of your arguments, they were definitely arguments. I was kind of originally I was like, "There's no way that you're going to get JSP in there because he's had so little on the acting creds on there, especially against Randy. Plus, Randy was such a bigger name for the Expendables on there. But honestly, you brought it back around and made it a real fight with GSP, bringing it in, and of course you hit my love of Jean-Claude Van Damme, the Belgian, not the Frenchman. And I was doing great until you brought up Kickboxer, and then how the sequels were great, and then I remembered Sasha Mitchell, who was the one who replaced Jean-Claude Van Damme in the sequels, and that was just horrible.
He's in there too. Jean-Claude Van Damme is.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's like one of the. He's the main antagonist, like instructor.
Oh wow.
He's like it's like a Karate Kid. Karate Kid.
Cobra Kai.
Yeah. Except for he knew martial arts under Miyagi, who the actor Pat Magai, something like that, didn't actually know martial arts. Random fact. That all being said, I was right there, was still even, and then you compared Randy Couture to The Rock, and that
come on!
just buried it for me.
I fixed it. I compared him to Dave Bautista. That's more appropriate.
That's still too much of a compliment.
come on!
So I'm going to give it to JSP.
Yeah.
GSP. Ah!
So, I mean, acting-wise, he did have a higher blockbuster movie.
You just like seeing me. I'm going to punch you.
But he had a higher blockbuster movie and everything else. And I'm hoping he has more to show off. He's much younger than Randy Couture, so there's going to be a lot more opportunity for him to do so. That being said, I'd love to see Randy Couture prove me wrong. In fact, I would, Randy, if you're watching, because we all know you're watching this, please come on to our podcast here in Salt Lake, and you can definitely come and tell me why I'm wrong. In fact, I'll be willing to let you punch Tom here in the face. So,
Hey now, I fought honorably for you. This guy.
with all that being said, I want to thank both of our guests here, both Danny and Brandon, who didn't say or do much, on
But
here.
we loved
I
his
was
input
here.
nonetheless.
Yes, that's right.
I think he did good.
Thank you both for showing, and thank you guys for watching. Please follow us on all of our social media so you know what our next episodes are. And if you have any comments, please put them in the comments of this episode or on our social medias, such as
Instagram.com/BeHeroMedia or Facebook.com/BeHeroMedia.
on Twitter at BeHeroFights, or you can find everything that is Be Hero at BeHeroMedia.com.
Don't forget, we have our blog up now on BeHeroMedia.com. We're
Yes.
doing articles. We actually are. We just released our review of the first 2 episodes of WandaVision.
Yes.
So go check that out. And all the other reviews, we've got a handful of reviews up there right now. We're going to be just doing, 1 or 2 articles every week talking about stuff that's going on in the media, the news, the world, but, in our own heroic way.
So hit us up. Tell us what you guys think. If there's something specifically you guys want us to talk about, review, whatever, let us know. And we're going to do something special coming up, hopefully in the next couple episodes, where we'll be giving away some free merch to the best comments. So get used to commenting now so you can get some of that.
Exactly. Thanks again for showing up, guys. We really appreciate you. And as always,
Fight on.
We know what you're thinking. Another wrestling podcast. But that's where you're wrong. We're the Seinfeld of wrestling podcast. We talk about life, our wives, our dogs, our girlfriends on the side. So come take a drive, take a seat, and take a mental vacation with the Mid-Card. New episodes every Saturday, anywhere you get your podcast from, or you can reach out to us on the social media. We're at T-Midcard on Twitter, at the Mid-Card on Facebook, and of course, at the Mid-Card Podcast on Instagram. We look forward to you joining us. See you soon.